Mistake number 3. Assuming the rules, boundaries, and strategies are the same for everyone. This is by far the most controversial issue I discuss in my keynote presentations. I intentionally left it out of the first edition because I wasn't sure how readers would respond. I chose to play it safe. Now, after receiving so much positive feedback from groups that I've spoken to, along with some pushback from those finding it patently unfair, I feel I not only should but must include it because to do otherwise would be an egregious oversight. If you've ever wondered why, when you say something in the exact same way a male counterpart says it, you get called a bitch, and he gets called assertive. It's because the rules, boundaries, and strategies are different for men and women, and for people of color and Caucasians. I don't think it's fair or right, but it does explain why people are treated and evaluated differently at work. The playing field diagram is useful in understanding these differences. Using the example of assertiveness, you can see from the following illustration that the boundaries are practically non-existent for men. The more assertive, direct, and straightforward they are, the better. Now let's take a look at the same playing field for women. Let's take a short look. Notice how the boundaries come in, making the field narrower. The narrower the boundaries, the easier it is to go out of bounds. Women can play by the same rules as men and expect to win the game. Right or wrong, we live in society where we don't like men who act like women, and we don't like women who act like men. Imagine if Warren Buffett cried during an earnings call. People would think the oracle from Omaha had completely lost it. Similarly, when women exceed the boundaries of acceptability for assertiveness in their corporate culture, they risk getting called out, called names, or called on the carpet. Finally, let's look at the assertive playing field for women of color. Let's take a good view for a while. The boundaries are even narrower. As a Caucasian woman, I can say things in a more assertive manner without going out of bounds than can a woman of color. When women of color, particularly African American women, are assertive, they are wrongly accused of being angry. Cultural issues that go into understanding the strength of their messages, such as having strong female role models and the acceptability of louder communications, are ignored. And they are categorized in a way that disinclines them from speaking their minds in the future, which just might be the purpose of the accusation to begin with. Renata was just such a woman as the CIO or Chief Information Officer at a multinational women's clothing firm. She was smart, no nonsense, articulate, hardworking, and quick on her feet. If she were a man, she'd be envied, but because she was an African American woman, she was feared. When she was referred to me for coaching, I conducted interviews with her peers, her management, and people who reported to her. In the vaguest terms, they described her as capable but not in sync with their corporate culture. This is usually code for she goes out of bounds. Personally, I like Renata and saw that she had a lot of value to add to her employer. But their playing field was so narrowly defined that she would have to turn herself into a pretzel to conform to it. This was an unfortunate circumstance where, despite my best efforts to help her see it, to help her see it wasn't her, but the culture that needed changing, and there was nothing either of us could do about that, she refused to adjust her behavior. Instead, she continued acting and communicating in ways that were most comfortable for her, but not for those around her. In the best of all worlds, I would have liked her to find a bigger playing field where she could simultaneously be herself and be appreciated. But instead, her intransigence around change caused her to ultimately be terminated. One additional thing to remember is that the rules, boundaries, and strategies don't only change for women and people of color. They change from company to company and boss to boss. What makes you successful in one company or with one boss won't always hold true in a different company or with a different boss. Each corporate culture has its own unique rules of engagement. I was talking about the playing field concept to a group of women at a defense contractor. Instead of using assertiveness to illustrate my point, I used creativity. After explaining that the boundaries for creativity in the entertainment industry are almost non existent, whereas the boundaries for creativity in the defense industry are narrower, a woman raised her hand and said, "That explains everything." It turns out she had recently transferred to this company from a film studio, and as she put it, whereas I could do nothing wrong in my last job, I can do nothing right in my current one. For our coaching tips, first, size up the playing field in your organization and identify the rules and boundaries for various behaviors. This in turn will help you to create strategies for successfully maneuvering the field within bounds, but at the edge. Number 2. Consciously decide if it's you or the size of the field that's holding you back. Sometimes we receive feedback that would be true on any field, in which case it's best to take it to heart and act on it. At other times, the feedback is unique to the situation or company. If in every job you've had, you've if in every job you've had, you've heard that you don't communicate crisply enough, then it's time to do something about it. Number 3. Understand that it is unlikely that you will change the size of the playing field to suit your needs. Playing your game at the edge can help to stretch the boundaries. But if it's too narrowly defined for you, start looking for a bigger field. Number 4. When transferring to a new company or a different boss, don't over rely on past strengths to build your credibility. They may or may not work. If you find yourself challenged by the transition, assess the new playing field by observing the behaviors of the people who seems to be winning the game. You might need to add some of their actions to your toolkit. And number 5, if you're a manager or business owner, focus in making the playing field equal for everyone by avoiding stereotype judgments, proactively valuing and capitalizing on diversity, and holding people accountable for treating everyone equitably.